Hello and welcome. This is Imran Siraj, and we are learning a subject, strength of material of BTech Mechanical fourth semester. So, in today's lecture, we will be discussing the columns and strut. Uh, we'll be discussing column and strut, and this is the final. This is the third unit of syllabus from the material. So we'll be discussing today column and stress. So column, yes. Let's come to the topic column. Column, as we know, that column is the support that is given beneath the beam beams, and this column is the vertical element of the structure that is basically used to transfer or transform the loads, because the beams and above the beams slabs or something like that is given is loaded, and this load is to be safely transferred to the basement, so safely transferred to the base, so that the beam or column is not harmed at all, or slab is not harmed. So for example, we are sitting on a roof, we are sitting on a roof, first floor, and we are exerting 60 to 80 persons are exerting load on the slab, and this slab is supported by the beam. So there are number of beams that are carrying, that are equally dividing the total load, uniformly distributed load, or maybe point load. So these are equally divided by the beams, and then these beams are used, and then these beams transfer the load to the column, and this way the whole load from the beam, from the slab to the beam to the column, is being transferred to the base, so that it is safe. So columns are the vertical elements, or vertical elements of the structure that are used to transfer or transform the load. At the same time, they are subjected to axial compressive loads. That means they are the load is applied in the direction of their axis, and again they are subjected to compressive loads, and these two are properties of the column. And if any member of the structure that is vertical, that is load acting along the axis of the structure, and at the same time it is compressive, the element will be known as column or strut. So we see number of pillars and columns in machines, we see number of columns in machine and pillars building, and many other places. So column is a vertical member, whereas strut is an inclined member. Strut is an inclined member, so it is not completely vertical, it is slightly inclined, maybe 20, 30, 40 or whatever, but it is not 90-degree from the horizontal. So this is the difference between column and the strut. So strut may be also a horizontal member. It is not compulsory that strut must be vertical. It may be horizontal member also. The load carrying capacity of a compression member does not depend on its cross-sectional area, but also on its length and manner in which the ends of the column are held. That means the loading conditions are very important, as well as length of any element, of any load carrying element is also important. So not only cross sectional area is subjected to strength, but also the entire length takes the load and distributes and transforms the load. So length is also a critical component of loading members like beams, columns, and its struts. So this way we must also focus on the length of columns and struts as well. So the equilibrium of a column, stable, unstable, and neutral. These are three types of equilibrium. So we'll be discussing one by one. Stable means that all forces neutralize each other and there is no net force that is being that is disturbing the stability of the column. So a stable column is known to have all the components of forces, vertical forces, so that they nullify or neutralize each other. So this way we can say sigma Fy must be equal to 0 in terms of vertical components. In terms of vertical components along the y-axis, we can say that if sigma Fy is equal to 0, the column is known to be stable. Unstable column is that has certain value, and this certain value is in particular one direction. For example, if we are if we are supporting a column by 10 kilonewtons and the load that is exerted on it is 11 kilonewton, so this 1 kilonewton is unbalanced, and this will disturb the whole balance. This will disturb the whole geometry of the column, and the column is bound to collapse because the support is given only for 10 kilonewton and we are loading from the top 11 kilonewton. So this way we can see the cause of failures of columns, and this way the buildings and high-rise infrastructures fail due to failure of column. So column has to be stable and neutralizing all the force components acting on it. And there is third, neutral: stable, unstable, and neutral. Neutral is the force that does not have any forces and does not have any imbalances, and this is called neutral. We will be discussing all in detail while taking problems. So stable, unstable, and neutral. Then the failure of the column takes place because of crippling or buckling load, because the load is applied from the top and support is given from the bottom in the direction of axis, and this is compressive from both the directions, the vertical upward loads and the vertical downwards load from the top normally transmitted by the beam. So this load from the both ends tries to cripple or buckle the column. Cripple or buckle the column. So this is basically the reason of failure of the column. Once we know the failures of the column, we would be able to design a better column. We would design a good column that would not fail under any conditions. So that's why failures of columns is very important as far as infrastructure or machineries are concerned, so that we have to design the columns of the machines and systems and infrastructure so that they don't fail under the crippling or buckling load. So critical or crippling or buckling load is the load where the column starts deteriorating, starts distorting. So this is the critical point where from the failure of the column starts. So column is said to have developed an elastic instability once the maximum load is achieved. After that, if even a few kilos are added to it, will start elastic instability. That means the column will be permanently deformed or plastic deformation, and this plastic deformation will ultimately lead to failure of the column. This is the critical situation, and all the forces are designed so that they don't overrun this critical or crippling or buckling load. The maximum load that can be applied, a column can be subjected to, is the critical load, and below critical load we apply load, and the critical load is that we don't have to reach that position so that the plastic deformation or permanent deformation starts. So we have to take care of it so that we design the good columns so that they don't fail at all. Now, classification of columns take three types: short, medium, and long. So these are basically length to air, area ratio, length to cross sectional area ratio, and this is if length to cross sectional area ratio is less, this is known as short. It is high, then it is known as long, and then it falls in between two, it is known as medium. So this will types of columns. Then Euler's theory. Columns are stressed which fail by buckling may be analyzed by Euler's theory. Assumption made. Euler theory is very important theory that is to be considered for failures of the column, because once we are acquainted with the Euler's theory, we will be able to design a safe column and a stable column. So Euler's theory is important theory, and the assumptions made are, first thing is column should be straight vertical. It should be initially straight. There is no tilting of the columns. So while erecting the columns designed by the Euler's theory, application of Euler's theory, we have to take care that it is not tilted slight, and even zero point 0.01 degrees also are considered. So this way we have to make a perfect vertical column, number one. Number two, cross sectional area should be uniform throughout the column. That means it must have same cross sectional area from the bottom to the top. Then line of thrust coincides exactly with the axis of column. So loading must be exactly at the center of the column, and material should be homogeneous and isotropic, and shortening of column due to axial compression is negligible. The last one is shortening of column due to axial compression is negligible. That means we don't consider compaction of the column because of loading. Now, for Euler's theory, when the both ends are hinged, as we discussed earlier, hinge is a condition where the hinged part can rotate about one plane or 1 degree. That means if this column having length L is hinged from both the side, that means it can it is allowed to move in this plane. So when this load is applied, and this load is applied from here, this is support and this is load. So we can see the column either will try to shift this way or that way. We are taking just one condition where then when the column is shifting leftwards. So when it is shifting leftwards, we have y max. This is the distance from which, like beams, it has deflected from the axis of the column. So this is y max, and from here it will start 0, deflection is 0 at the ends, and will start 0, 0, 0.1, 0, 0.2, 0, 0.3, and this way will be coming, and this is the y at a distance of y from the at a distance of y from the vertical. So this is y, and this will be y max. At the center it will be exactly, because both points of loading are equal points, are equal loaded. So y max will be at the maximum, and this is the y distance. So we are taking a section x at a distance of x. So what we will see that if we take cross section of the C, the bending moment can be given by E I d2y by dx square minus p into y. If we take if we take moment of the force, this is the P, and this distance is y. If we are working like this is y, and y we have taken negative sign. It indicates that the force will try, if we apply force on this is the point. So this will rotate anti-clockwise. That's why we have taken minus Py. So this Euler's theory for both hinge cases defines that Ei d2y by dx square equals minus Py equals m. So this is the moment of the forces, in which we have to double integrate the E and I is the modulus of elasticity, and E is the moment of inertia. So we can substitute the value. Now equation can be written as E I d2I by dx square minus Py is taken on the left side. So this way we will find minus d2I by dx square plus Py is equal to 0. Or we can also say that alpha square is equal to P by EI. P by EI, we have introduced a constant alpha, that is P by EI, in order to make a differential equation of second order, so that it contains only and dx uh, and dx attributes. So this way d2y by dx square plus alpha square plus y will be 0, because we have assumed alpha is equal to minus Py by EI. Alpha square is equal to P by EI. So this is alpha square. So this way we have taken left side. Now the equation can be written as d2i by dx square plus alpha square is equal to y. So we have 2 times, we are integrating 2 times y with respect to x. So this way we will be having y equals a sin alpha x plus b cos alpha x. So if we differentiate 2 times, we'll be getting, and where a and b are the constants. So x is equal to 0, at x is equal to 0, y is equal to 0, b is equal to 0, and x is equal to L, y is equal to L. Thus a sin alpha is equal to 0. If a is equal to 0, y is equal to 0 for all values. So this way, substituting the values at, we have already studied in case of beam, we can see that the value will change of x from x equal to 0 to x is equal to L. So at what cases, at what points it will be x and it will be L. So we can see. So now substituting these values, we will be getting Euler's crippling load P is equal to E square alpha square EI pi square EI by L square. So this is the basic equation that we have got for Euler's crippling load, that is after integrating and substituting these values. This is so simple, and we'll be substituting these values, and we'll find pi square EI by L square is the crippling load Euler's as defined by the Euler's theory. So we'll apply this for solving our problems. Pi square EI by L square. This was the case when both ends were hinged. So similarly, we will have another case when one end fixed and another free. So when this end is free, what we can see, only the top portion is allowed, only the free end can move from its original position. Whereas in case of hinge, both ends hinge, we have seen that since both ends hinge, it is, the column is allowed to move in any direction, either in this direction or in this direction. So the maximum deflection will be at the center point, whereas in case of one end fixed, another free, so this free end will have maximum deflection, and this maximum deflection will be found by a or y. So we can substitute the same values. eid to y by d square equals m is equal to minus p a minus y. Minus is not getting taken in that case, because it is now, it's tilting, it's trying to create a clockwise movement, and clockwise movement will have positive values. So this will have E equals P A minus Y. A is the deflection, maximum deflection, and Y is the initial deflection, or starting from the 0. So we'll have P A minus Y. So this way, the value of Y will change from 0 to A, condition number 1. Condition number 2, 0 of value will X will change from 0 to L. So if these two values we are confident, then we will be substituting while integrating, and then substituting this value will be giving us exact result. So we can see eid to y by dx square equals m is equal to p a minus y. So this way we'll be finding this value, and we can say that Euler's theory, Euler's crippling theory for a case where one end is fixed, another is free, we'll be having pi square ai by 4l square. Substituting these value, simply we'll find substitute these value and we'll be finding this final equation. So these two equation will define uh, when the one both ends are hinged and when the one end is fixed and another end is free. I hope this is clear, and still if you have problem, I don't suppose you are going to have any problems. Still you have problems, you may get in touch with me at my number 9069360400. For the time being, I am signing off. I'll be seeing you in next lecture. Okay, bye, see you.